call the December 2nd City Council meeting to order. Call the roll.
John Hawkins,
Here.
Matt McKinney,
Here.
Brian Miller,
Here.
Jim Talbot,
Here.
Logan Welch.
Here.
Call for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next section is A, petitions, communications and requests. This is a time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. No more than 5 minutes per person. Except in cases of emergency, the City Council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask City staff to research the matter and have the matter placed on the agenda for a future meeting. Anyone have anything for us tonight? Just a reminder, we've got Christmas in the City event on Saturday, December 14th. Not much else. Item B is minutes and claims. The following items have been deemed non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, it will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. I have item 1 is minutes of November 18, 2019. Item 2 is resolution on payroll and period ending November 23rd and paid on November 27th. And item 3 is a resolution on bills and a fund list.
I move to approve 1, 2, and 3 collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 2 on the agenda is the second reading of a proposed ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City. It's not,
Sorry, yeah.
We're too early for our item 1. 2019 by adding Article 13 to the Chapter 42 pertaining to encroachment of the public right-of-way within the corporate limits of the City of Webster City, Iowa. Again, did you want to talk on that one again, or?
I don't know whether we've discussed it last time. I have not heard any comments back. I don't know if the
Okay.
council has heard anything or city attorney, so
No
I
one's,
recommend we
anyone need any?
proceed to second reading.
Call for a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 3 is a resolution accepting work authorising change order number 1 and pay request number 4 in the amount of $0 and $7,568.10. Retainage to be paid in 30 days to Nels Pedersen Company Incorporated of Badger, Iowa for completion of contract for the 2019 sewer rehabilitation and repair project. So there was no issues with that at all?
If you have any questions, I can answer the questions. We repaired 6 locations, Woolsey in First, 3rd in Funk, 2nd in White Fox, Cedar and Union, South Edgewood Drive, and Superior in 2nd. So those were the repairs.
Okay. You happy with the work? Okay. Call for a motion?
So moved.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 4 is a resolution accepting work authorising change order number 1 and pay request number 3 in the amount of $43,168.24 and $10,672.70 retainage to be paid in 30 days to Caster Construction LLC, Fort Dodge, Iowa, for completion of contract for the 2019 water main repair project.
In this particular water main repair project, we did 7 repairs. We did 4 of them along Beach Street. If you can recall, the traffic detours or slows at times. 1 on West Street, and then 1 on Seneca and Bank, and 1 on 3rd and Superior. So the biggest part of the change order is under the ones on Beach Street, under the accompanying streets that come off of Beach Street, when they put that water main in, they put it in a sleeve. We were not aware of that at that time, and it is very deep. I'm not sure why, I have some suspicions as why they put it in a sleeve. Maybe they directional bored it in and then put the water main inside of it. Anyway, we weren't aware of that at the time, and consequently had to cut the sleeve to get at the water main, so, to make the changes. So that's the main reason for, you see such a change, or the change order.
Yeah, it says quantities adjustment, is that like?
Yeah,
Is that quantities in like labor hours and material?
yeah, it's materials.
Call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Ken. Item one on the agenda is a public hearing, 6:05 PM, public hearing on proposed use of property located at 102 McKinley Cantor Drive, Webster City, Iowa. I'll open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
I received no written objections.
Are there any oral objections?
No oral objections.
I'll close the hearing. Carla, did you want?
We received a request from Dave Perrin, who is the owner of the building located at 102 McKinley Cantor Drive. He is requesting to lease that building to an office space, which is not an allowable use in an M2 district. I've sent you a map of the area where his building is located, what's around it, what isn't around it, and it went before the Planning and Zoning Commission in November at their meeting. And after studying the location, studying the former uses of that building, up to just, well, the lease expires in January. It's been Pete Publishing, it's been Farm Journal, it's been the AnswerNet call center, it's all office-related uses. And the P&Z went through the criteria that is listed in the ordinance regarding allowing a use in an M2 if it's not already listed in the M2. There's 5 criteria that I also request that you look at to make your decision. But the Planning and Zoning Commission did approve unanimously to allow this new entity to locate in this location. Dave Perrin is here tonight if you want to ask him any questions. I want to remind you that if you do grant this use to be allowed in this building, it is site specific. It is not, it does not open it up to any other building or any other existing place in an M2. It's specifically in that area or in that building, and it's with your approval. That's the only way it can make use of that building.
It's only half the building anyway.
He is going to retain some of it for his existing use, which is light industry. And then this front half basically will be the office.
2/3.
2/3 of it.
So we didn't have any written or oral objections, but do the neighbors know? They'd be the only ones that would be closely.
Rube is next door.
Cause you don't have any, you just have farmland on the other side, right?
Yeah.
You were at the planning and zoning meeting. I went through that list of 5 upon receiving the agenda. And I don't see any issue there, but were there any hang-ups amongst the planning and zoning commission of those 5?
No.
Was there one they had to circle back? I figured they're kinda no-brainers, so I just didn't know if
That's right.
more minds thinking they came up with something like that. Good.
Yeah.
I would agree. From my perspective, I read through those as well, and it's been used in that purpose in the past, and I don't foresee why we shouldn't approve it going forward.
Do you see any concerns, Zach? Looks good to me.
I move to approve.
Second.
Call for a motion on the resolution authorising C3 highway business district use in the M2 heavy industrial district located at 102 McCandley Kindler Drive.
My motion still stands.
No.
Second, yep.
Okay.
So all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Carla. So item 5 is an update on the 2020 Second Street reconstruction project.
I'm gonna let City Manager, Mr. Sheridan, speak a little bit about the financial piece of it. The piece that I wanted to speak to would be, obviously, we own the house at the corner of Beach and Superior, or Beach and Second.
Not yet.
Well,
2 more
we
weeks.
become owners of it December 13th, is that correct?
That's the closing.
So, my plan, and this is what I wanted to kind of get some kind of consensus from the council on, is my plan is to put that building, that house, up for sale, and try to sell it to an individual that will place it on a lot within Webster City. And then have it such that in the specifications, they are given a higher priority over someone that bids on the house and wants to move it to a different location, or outside the corporate limits. The other thing that I want to put in the specifications is that they remove all the structural concrete, which would be the basement walls and the basement floor. They don't need to fill in that hole because we'll have spoils that we'll need to get rid of anyway, so we can put the spoils from the project in that hole. So those are the things, if the council thinks that we need to go a different direction, I'm fine with that. But right now, that was our thought, and if we don't get any bids, then I would come back to you and recommend that we put it up for demolition.
The only thing I would add is I would suggest that we identify the closest 2 or 3 vacant lots that might be appropriate for the house to be moved to, should someone be interested in it.
Including city lots,
Correct.
like John Street.
I've had people reach out to me asking if we are gonna offer it in that way. I just told them to keep a lookout, we'll announce what we're doing, so.
How long are we thinking this hole's gonna be open for, if we're looking at it from a liability standpoint?
I think what my plan was, or my thought was, is okay, once they remove the structural concrete, it then becomes fenced.
Like a snow fence?
Yeah.
If we make them fill it in, then we don't have to worry about a hole.
We had one 3 blocks up that was open for a year.
We weren't liable for
We
that
didn't
one
want
though.
it, though. That's my only,
Okay. If,
and it really wasn't a popular corner, I'm just thinking somebody,
I think we're gonna be wandering around the street then.
I like the idea of having them fill it in. Even though we have a place for that, it's gonna be a long ways before we have that stuff.
we could do it that way, or we can use our own material to fill it in, because we have plenty of fill at the street department, and we need to get rid of.
When you said, offer up a list of close by lots, you're just making a list of ones that'll fit that footprint of a home? That's like an outlot or an infill lot?
Right, looking at the appropriate options that could be included in the negotiation for moving the home. Obviously, our primary goal is if we can have the house reused as an owner occupied in the city of Webster City, that's the best case scenario. So certainly if they have a lot that they own and they wanna move it there, that's fine. But if it's someone who doesn't, I'd like to have the options available, make them aware of some places they could move it if they were to negotiate with the city on the lot. And I'm sure it would be very negotiable if they've offered the best price for the house, and can recoup some of the cost the city has invested in it.
Kent, what is the age of the house as it stands now? I mean,
Kinda, look, it's gotta be, from the fifties,
I thought it was
sixties.
built in the fifties, if I remember correctly.
I don't have that in front of me, I may have it in the
I've
file.
been inside it, yeah.
I looked at it once, I don't have a
I
photographic
looked at it a
memory
couple
though.
times, yeah. I think it was built in the fifties. It's really, it's got a nice, really nice basement. That was, the sad part. I mean, that, it's a.
You won't
really nice
anymore.
house. It won't anymore?
It won't be going.
Right.
The basement won't be going with it. Well, they could,
Yeah,
it'd be a challenge.
Yeah, I just think taking any reasonable offer to get it moved, I mean, provided it meets the
Sure.
criteria you've established, I think, you know, you think about just destroying the house, you know, we talk about LMI housing, and here's an opportunity, you know, I don't know what it costs from the city to move, but it's,
Right. Hopefully we'll get some competitive bids of somebody who'll move it close by
Yeah.
and reoccupy it.
yeah.
thank you.
So we have lots close by in that area.
I think we can identify at least the
Really,
closest ones. I don't know how close they
I
are.
mean, I know this.
John Street's gotta be the closest, right?
Well, the beauty of that house though, I mean, it's.
Oh, I guess Elm.
There's some-
Elm will be available soon,
It wouldn't be that difficult to move because of it being a ranch. You know, I mean, no matter where you take it, it's not gonna be as difficult as some of the houses I've seen moved, you know, 2 stories. 'Cause
That's
it's-
that's an easy.
Right.
I think from a liability standpoint, you're gonna wanna fill it back in though.
And we can do that, I have no problem doing that, I would just
No.
trying to use.
Yeah, I agree though, all the foot, if it was like a less foot traffic area, but I see people there all the time, so.
The other piece on the finances, as we discussed at a previous meeting, the city is now eligible for community development block grant funds based on our low to moderate income statistics. We've met with the administrators of some of those funds and the engineer to look at the possibility of applying for funding for the sewer and water portions of the Second Street project. And that is doable. It does have some strings to come with it. In talking to staff, I think we're gonna take a look if there's not some other sewer and water projects that might be more timely. By dividing the project into 2 pieces, would add some costs. And so, at this point, what I would say is, if we can find other projects that the city's more competitive in applying for those funds for sewer and water, I think that's where we'll focus our efforts. We are limited to 1 open project at a time, so it's to our advantage to apply for projects that we can construct quickly, and then go back in for additional funding. So at this time, I would suggest it's possible that Second Street might be involved with CDBG, but it's more likely we'll find other city projects that are a better fit for that funding.
It's kind of good news, bad news, right? Because remind me, the
is.
reason we qualify for this is because of the age of our homes and the income levels. Is that just-
Primarily income levels. It's the low to moderate, and I emphasize moderate. It is not poverty by any stretch of the imagination, and it's adjusted for family size. So I can tell you, there have been times when had all 4 children at home, and my salary as a town manager, I still qualified for moderate income. Because we had 4 kids, so a family size of 6 was a reasonable salary. So, and we're only 52%, so it literally just pushed us over the edge. 51% is the threshold. Any other questions? Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, item D is reports and recommendations of officers, boards and commissions. Item 1 is a motion to no, I better do. I'm missing something here. No. Usually I do all that.
Yeah. These weren't on the meeting last meeting, so they're on
Okay.
this meeting.
Item 1 is a motion to accept and place on file October financial reports. Financial report, bank reconciliation report, public funds checking account, public funds sweep account, public funds USDA revolving loan account, receipts, and the summary of investments. A call for motion.
So moved.
Accept those.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Are there any council committee reports?
I'll just make one note, well, 2. one, I still need youth advisory commission members, middle school and high school, and then two, other reports and recommendations. I briefly touched on it with Mr. Sheridan before the meeting, but a citizen approached me today wanting the police and fire report to be more accessible. It's already public. It's just more accessible and like a click away, maybe on the website or something. So if we can look into that, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm sure so they would. So,
We'll take care of it tomorrow.
thank you.
Any other, nothing else to come?
I do, I just recalled, is there any plan in the works to add trees to the Brewer Creek area where we're having some destruction based on beavers and whatnot?
Yes.
Is there something set in place?
There's nothing in writing yet, but certainly the plan all along was to replace some of those trees.
And then on a secondary to that is when we do plant them, is that something the youth advisory committee could jump on and help out with, a good?
So one thing that the Youth Advisory Commission have in the works right now that unfortunately has kind of been derailed due to the loss of Kent was the extra 9 holes of the Frisbee golf course. And our advisory commission will be ready to jump on that as soon as the Parks and Rec Board or the city wants to turn that corner. But we totally understand the delay and we're in no hurry. Planting the trees would be another great opportunity for them to help with.
Yeah, I know in the beginning we kind of talked about not having them do something like the planting of the trees, that type of thing, but I think they're more than willing and it'd be good stuff for them to do.
What I usually find with my board members, that my interactions with them, they're looking for volunteering opportunities. They're looking for exposure to the city more than they are necessarily wanting to put their fingerprint on the community, which I really hope is a byproduct of the board and commission, and it's really kind of what it's designed for. But I see them reaching out to like get involved in, the Christmas or the holiday in the city or the Christmas in the city thing coming up. Something like that would be great to task them part of it in the future, or other community events, because that's the two things that come out of it: extracurricular or social activities for teenagers, alternatives, and involvement in city and community events. Is the two things I keep seeing a hunger for.
Well, I'll send you an email too. We could use them to help sort presents for Angel Tree. That's a big, cumbersome thing that a few young able bodies would be helpful. All right.
So, you've got a report.
Yeah, so, Edgewood Drive development, that's going on, the apartments and all that, will be coming up. It's gotta go to P&Z first, but it'll be coming up for you guys for a final plat. We hope in the near future.
Maybe.
As far as my end goes with them, I've worked with their attorney and we've reviewed all the documents and we're good, other than we still need an abstract. They're gonna send that to us. And we're working on a separate agreement with them on the stormwater, essentially the future maintenance of these retention ponds and how we, /detention ponds, and how we handle that. So I'm not fully comfortable with what we come up with yet, but we're working on it, and again, that'll all be part of the packet. That's separate than their checklist. They still have to come up with a checklist they have to get approved before you guys can take it up, but I'm hoping we continue to work with them that we can get that wrapped up for both sides' sake. Carl and I have been working over the last couple months as far as just pinpointing different areas in town that are for future development, whether that be commercial or residential, just so we're being more proactive as far as that goes, so we know if something does come along. We get the flyers, people throwing out flyers and stuff like that, but just sniffing around. But if something does come that's actually serious, then we have a plan in place and we can get that. Because we are, if you look around town, we're kind of bursting at the seams as far as commercial goes and as far as residential goes. There's only so many options that are left without some sort of a future long distance annexation or something like that. So, which is a good problem to have for the city by all means. But I'm glad to see we're being proactive on that. 940 3rd Street is another property we just took, and the abandonment becomes official in 2 days, the 4th. We went to court on it on the 4th of November, and the gentleman that was using the property on and off, it was his sister's property, who's now deceased. He just needed a month to get his stuff out, so we granted it. We said that was no problem. So December 4th, he's supposed to have everything out, and then it becomes possession of the city, effective, like I said, Wednesday, and then it'll be another one for the city to do something with. So
Are they talking all exposed retention ponds on that development, or any of them underground?
They're all exposed.
They're all exposed.
That's way too technical for me. I know what the agreement says.
Under the dirt or above.
Yeah, and we have one more property that's coming up, before I forget, in January, through 313 Broadway.
So, and this is a common theme I hear in the community. And I wouldn't call it annoying, but it's frustrating, the fact that there's still this, I guess, assumption that we haven't been extremely strict and extremely aggressive on obtaining these properties and finding a way to either demolish them or make them safe or take away the nuisance they may cause. Off the top of your head, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, how many of these have we tackled the last 3 or 4 years when we really turned that corner to get aggressive and draw the line?
Ugh, a lot. Probably, what? Dozen and a half, maybe?
That have been
20?
completed, right?
Well, problem is we're really good at getting them, and this has been a point I've brought up a few times. The whole give a year and a half, whatever it is to fix up is great in theory, and I've said that before. It's great in theory because it fixes the property up that's dilapidated. The problem is it takes so long that the city ends up owning more properties in town that are dilapidated than the people that actually own the dilapidated properties in town. So we are officially now the person who owns, by and large, the most junk properties in town. So it kind of defeats the back. So I'm glad to see like some of these like Elm Street, Dubuque, Clark Street, all those getting tore down, which you lose a house, but you actually, as a neighborhood, it makes it look better.
Right,
And
right.
so that's my push is, some of these, we have to take a hard look at, like, yeah, it could possibly be fixed up, but at the end of the day, it's better served being demolished.
Demolished,
and-
right.
And letting an infill lot be available and let somebody else buy it and do whatever they want with it. So, but, as far as going after properties, we've taken them all over town.
Right.
We're on Broadway now, we're kind of to the point now where I brought up to Carla that we're almost getting too picky about houses. They're kind of on that questionable line of, yeah, they're always living there, but they're solid, they're pretty nice houses, so.
I'm comfortable with pushing that line until we get to the point where we gotta back off. And if we're getting close to that, great, but I still don't think we're there yet. But again, I say this all because there's this.
But we're talking different things now, we're talking, these are abandoned houses, not junk houses, abandoned, I mean,
And-
nobody's there.
And when you say, and again, I agree with everything you said, but for the public's sake, the fact that we control these houses now, the fact that we have the ability to throw them in a demolition bid or sell them at will, takes a lot of that nuisance out of it. That was just sitting there, not knowing what's going on, you know, things might be happening. So that takes a lot of the whatever out of the questionable property out of it by having ownership and having someone to talk to about it. It's not like you've said before, some of these properties have been owned all over the country. That just kind of moved away and they just left them. The other thing is, you know, the demolition of these and the opportunity for some people to fix them up. If it's an investment opportunity, if it's a financial opportunity, whatever it may be for an individual, great, but you're right, it needs to be on an aggressive timeline. And I know I'm guilty of it, we've given extensions to people that have had questionable properties. And again, I've said it before, and I'll say it tonight publicly, if there's a issue that you come in front of the council and talk to us about, we're all for collaboration. It's when, you know, they just assume our inspections department are just gonna give them that, and they get frustrated with it, or the community thinks our inspections department isn't being that strict with it, which they are. I'm really appreciative of that. Again, I just kinda wanna clear up some perception that a lot of people come up to me like, well, there's so many dilapidated houses, I'm like, I think you and Carla are at your capacity of how many you can handle, so.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I do want the public to realize is that there is a huge difference between abandoned properties that we're able to go through the court system and get possession of and tear down or fix up versus a junk property, which is somebody living in the house. We don't have the authority to go get that house, unfortunately, and that's what gets, that line is somewhat blurred in the sense that we have citizens that are saying, you're going to tear these houses down all over town, tear down my neighbor's house, and it's like, well, he lives there, and we can't go in and tear his house down. So I think that's the one thing that I always want people to be aware of, is there's a major difference there.
We had that one on 1000 block of Division that was abandoned for a long time, and it was getting to the point of dilapidation because of nobody was there. I don't remember what happened with that house, but when do we decide abandoned, nobody living, or maybe not abandoned, but not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that one, I know, his White House you're talking about, yeah, they ended up moving back in, which then it was kind of lost the abandoned status, and then he he put some money into it, he put front porch, he painted it and all that stuff, and it wasn't as bad as other houses have been, but yeah.
But when we get an abandoned one, if it's still in good shape, what grounds do we have to move on it, you know what I'm saying?
If we deem it, or we take possession,
You're saying we're getting to a point where the line, where do we go? How does that line drawn if it's not dilapidated, but it's abandoned, it's gonna be dilapidated with another year of abandonment?
that when it becomes dilapidated, that's the problem we run into is part of the requirement of being abandoned is, it's not that just somebody doesn't live there, there's actually 10 items you have to meet. Well, you have to meet at least the majority of them, which is like, the city's mowing the grass is one thing. If it has no utilities, but the major thing is if it doesn't meet our building code, or if it doesn't meet our zoning, or if it meets, it's considered a nuisance. So a house that has a roof that's in decent shape and siding, although nobody's living there, there's no violations there. So we have to, that's where we run into the issue, is it has to have some sort of structural or, some sort of nuisance, we have rodents going in and out and all that stuff, which is
So
like,
how are we on the one on Third Street, that's the next block up?
which that,
One, it's on the north side of,
is that 943rd Street, the one he's talking
no,
about?
the next block.
The one that's in the backyard
I'm at the backyard and people staying me.
on John Street, between John and Third, there's like a shack, kind of shantyville going on back there.
Do we own it?
No.
What?
We've had complaints, we've had 2 complaints last week
Vehicles in
alone on it.
Isn't,
1031,
we don't even
Third.
know where the guy that owns it is.
what?
Isn't the guy that owns it isn't living there, is he?
No, he joined the circus. We have nowhere
Literally?
to send a letter to him. And on top of that, he has squatters in there.
I think you just said he joined the circus, is that what you said?
You think what?
That is exactly
All
what
right.
it is.
Well, that's news to me, so I can take a look at it, I don't know anything, I don't know anything about
It's a,
it.
it's a problem.
Yeah, that's,
I don't know.
yeah, so that can be brought to me, Carly.
It hasn't got any water, electricity, or sewer or anything.
That's a prime, there's other ones you guys think of too, because we've talked about that before too, the previous building inspector, which we would send her out and she'd come back with a list, and then we would sit down and actively go through these lists and the pictures that she's collected and say, this one doesn't really fit, or have you checked on the utilities on that one, but if you have other properties, by all means, let me know.
Well, let me ask you this, so
Let Carla know.
I think if we put that out to the community, you'd get a list pretty quick. Do you have the capacity?
But it has to be abandoned.
Right, and do you, Carla, let me ask you this, do you need support and manpower to manage that type of, list, I mean, is that something that, I don't wanna just throw up on your plate, the next thing we know, we got 30 properties that we're not really managing that well, cause there's so many. I like the fact that we're cherry picking them, we're going after them, you're getting aggressive in the courts, I love that, we've won that with that strategy. But is it something maybe we talk about, budget-wise, if that's gonna be our goal, if that's gonna be kind of our mission statement, if we will, about nuisance properties and abandoned properties more so, do we fund, a resource for that?
If I may, I'll answer that question, Carlin, you can certainly throw your perspective in, but my perception is the inspector is at capacity now, and if we're gonna take on a great deal of additional inspections, we would need additional resources.
Yeah, it's kind of been like, I don't wanna cut in on Carla, but it's kind of been like, you pick your battles,
Sure.
So, like abandoned properties is very, very front-loaded in the sense that we need a lot of stuff, and I'm always coming back on these properties, if they give me them, and they say, this is the one I wanna go after, I'm saying, I need utilities, I need reports, I need, how many times we mowed it before, I need all the copies of those, how many times we sent letters before, that, so it's very intensive as far as what I need, and then once I get it, I can take it over from there, but I need that information, so it's like, when we've been focusing on abandoned, then maybe junk vehicles is falling off the way, and then we started going after junk vehicles, and then now we have a new building inspector, so we're kind of bringing him up to speed on everything, but then we're focused on now that maybe now nuisance properties are going, so it's kind of like we're picking our battles and we're letting the other ones.
Yes, fall in the crack.
And the problem is, the time to do abandoned houses or junk, dilapidated houses, unsafe buildings, whatever, is the summer. And that's the busiest time in the year for the inspection department, is summer, construction time. So, as far as help and at capacity right now, everything kind of hinges in the summer, spring, summer, fall. We're lucky we get carryover. This winter came too fast. And then you just get, if you started them, you get into the process of giving extensions because the weather is bad, they can't roof. And that's what we're running into with Dairy Queen.
Sure.
Get on it in time and now they're gonna be back. So,
What
It's-
would the idea of possibly bringing in like a civil engineering intern or something, or some type of, person involved in that type of degree or trade, looking for some internship if the summer is the hot spot, you know, I mean, and that would cut budgets for us, or not extend our budgets, and you might have a couple extra paper pushers during that period.
I'm open to all suggestions.
I guess, just the little bit I know about it, it doesn't seem like something you can drop somebody in and have them be productive. There's a learning curve and some time to it, right?
Well, we have criteria set out for everything,
Yeah.
and it just takes time to go and visually inspect to meet that criteria. Take pictures, and just come back and do all the paperwork.
Well, this is good to know, cause we're going into budget season, right, you know, so maybe this is something we kinda put an asterisk next to when we sit down and do that coming up, if your department needs some more resources to really go after this the way you see fit. So.
Yeah, I think a part-time, I'm not telling you, part-time code enforcement would be ideal in the sense of it helps. You're kinda asking the building inspector, like you said, to go look at buildings on one day and then go look, or, you know, to, somebody's putting up a house and they're going to look at that, and then on the flip side, then you're asking them to go mark every house in town that's got a junk vehicle in the front yard. I mean, it's hard, I mean, you're kind of putting on two hats.
It'll be more work for you, but I'm all for paying a part-time guy, but not giving you a raise, Zach.
That's
That's just blasphemy.
Yeah, that's not, yes.
Well, one comment I've heard from a lot of different folks that are in the construction trades, and, you know, hire a retired carpenter or bricklayer, you know, somebody that's familiar, you know, has the esoteric knowledge of house construction to do something like that. I mean, yeah, I understand the civil engineer, but I mean, they're not in it.
Sure,
Construction,
no,
they're more
I get you.
lat or horizontal as opposed to vertical. And, you know, that type of deal, but, you know, part-time, you know, with a retired person from
They
the,
might be a better engineer if they have that experience, though.
Right, yeah, they kind of see.
well, yeah, but I mean, you know, like you'd almost wanna look at structural, mechanical, or architectural. But I do wanna make one comment for Carla and, Zach at this time, you know, as I sit here, you know, we've talked through this, we had that house on River Street that had the Tom Dooley titles, nobody knew where it was under the streets of Boston, going around and around, nobody found it. You know, you guys finally got that, and we finally got rid of that, then it was forever that, situation on Elm Street, and that was just the deal of playing the legal system against us, and unfortunately, I mean, for the students here, you know, the city does a lot of excellent things, but we got a judicial system that you get it on a docket, then somebody comes up, sneezes, or has an excuse, then it gets postponed another 6 months. And that's the frustration you folks deal with too, I mean, but I do wanna compliment, you know, gotten a lot of stuff done, I mean, that's the positive, you know, look at the positive side of it, you know, and, so. But that place up there that John was talking about, I've driven by there and that is, and I, you know, a comment I heard from somebody that, there's squatters living there with tacit approval of the owner. That's just the term that came out, whether that's true or not, but, you know.
I don't know that, I'll have to look into that property, I don't know.
Well, you
Hopefully you
want-
have a packet on it, cause I don't have anything.
Zach, go up there and have a barbecue next
You're gonna
week.
look for the circus, that's where it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got the big tent there,
Have you finished your report?
I have.
Alright.
Item F is a meet and close session to discuss the purchase, sale, of particular real estate only where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the governmental body would have to pay for that property as provided by chapter 21.5J of the Code of Iowa. We're going to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thanks everybody for coming.